Thank you so much, Lorna. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. As Lorna mentioned, my name is David Groves. I'm a policy researcher with the RAND Corporation, which is a nonprofit policy research organization based in Southern California, although I am located in the Front Range in Boulder. So I am very familiar with the water issues and love Colorado, and I'm really happy to be here talking to you about how we think about planning for the future. And for those of you who were part of the morning climate session, you know, the themes of climate change and what's happening and also the uncertainty about it are really some of the motivators behind the activity for today. So the title of the session is Decisions for the Decade, a Serious Game for Water Planners. So we are going to play a game, and it is fun, and it's certainly more fun the more you just kind of throw yourself into it. But it's serious because it's not just about having fun. It's about thinking about something pretty serious, which is planning for the long term for water resources. So let's see if this clicker works. Not yet. There we go. Okay, decisions for the decade. And do I need to point it? Or, there we go. Okay, so the main question that we're trying to answer as we play this game is how do we make smart, long-term decisions? And how long does it take the clicker to respond? Are you advancing me, or is this working? Let's see. Oh, maybe, yeah. That works better. Okay, so we're all going to participate, and a really important thing is expect confusion. This is like real life. You're not going to exactly know exactly what you're doing at all times, and so if you're a little bit confused, don't think that reflects on me and the people who designed the game. That was by design, so go with it. All right, so you are a planner, and perhaps you're a planner of a large city in a region kind of like the one we're in right now. And what we are trying to do is, or what you're trying to do as you play the game, is to think about how to prepare your community for the future. So you're thinking about questions, well, what will the future bring? How might that be different from the past? What decisions can I make now to prepare myself for the future? And you know, I include here the cone of uncertainty, which I'm sure many of you have seen, given that it originates from Lorna's shop in Denver Water and is used by WCA. And it's really designed to give you, you know, just to remind you that the future can take many paths, and we don't always know which path it's going to take, or we always don't know which path it's going to take, and so we need to make decisions regardless. So here's the setup. So you guys are in groups of 4 mostly. If you can't divide the number of people by 4, you're going to have a remainder of 2, and we want to avoid that if possible. So you know, it looks like we're pretty good. Okay, so basically each group of 4 is a region, and each individual represents a city. And what we're doing in this game is making decisions about the future. And as a city planner, you make decisions, you know, essentially on your own. So you're not collaborating with the other cities. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? You make your own individual city decisions. However, you are also, as a group of 4, representing a region, you know, like Colorado, the Front Range, et cetera. And as a region, you need, of course, to use teamwork. So you're going to make decisions as a region together in groups of 4. And you have some supplies to help move this game along. You have 2 types of game boards. There's one with a blue banner across the top. Those are the city boards, and each individual player should have 1 blue city board in front of them. And I'll explain sort of how it works, and it's not that complicated. But everybody grab a blue game board. That is your board to play and make decisions and reflect those decisions on that board individually. And then there's also a red region board. You should have 1 red region board for a group of 4 people. Okay, so remember, as a group of 4, you're going to collaborate on your regional decisions. All right, so just a couple of rules. First of all, and this goes without saying, this is a really big simplification of reality, right? It's a game. So you're not allowed to challenge the rules. You may not like some of the rules, and I'm really sorry. I'm bound by oath to follow the rules as they're laid out in my PowerPoint presentation. So don't even bother trying to change the rules. Decision making, again, I mentioned this, no consulting on city decisions, please, and do collaborate on your regional decisions. And in this game, we're going to play 4 decades. So again, it's a simplification of reality, right? We're going to go through 40 years in, you know, an hour. So each round is 10 years, and this will make sense as we go along. Okay, now I want to move into the mechanics of the game. There are 4 main steps, and I'm going to walk through them with some examples, and then we're going to play the game, which gets a lot more interesting. And there is a roving mic, I believe, and we're going to use that mic so that you all can join and share your insights and your thoughts as you're playing the game, because actually that's a lot of what we take from this game is listening to how other people are thinking and responding to the challenges posed by this game. All right. Okay, so the first step is receive scientific information. So you're a planner, you're a sophisticated planner, right? You don't make your decisions on a whim. You use information and science to inform your decisions. So as an example, you might look at historical weather records or climate records or streamfall gauges or whatnot. Here's an example of annual precipitation measurements at a reservoir, right? So this is a type of information you might use to consult and think about, well, what's the future going to be like? Well, that's what it was in the past. And so in this game, we're going to represent information about the future, stochastically. We're going to use a 6-sided die, which you should have in each group of 4 should have 1 baggie, and inside that baggie is a 6-sided die, among other things. So if you look into that bag and pull out that die, you'll notice that it is a standard issue Amazon bulk 6-sided die. And we're going to use this to represent the climate as we simulate the future and see how our decisions play out. So the first step, we'll talk about the scientific information you're going to use and talk about what it means to roll the die. The next step is making decisions, okay? So you're going to receive information, you're going to ponder it, you're going to scratch your head, and then you're going to make some decisions. And the way that decision making goes is you are trying to decide how to allocate scarce resources. We talked a lot about this during lunch, right? We don't have as much money as we want to make the investments that we'd ideally like to do, so we have to make trade-offs. And so in your bag, you have beans. These are not cooked beans. Don't eat them. They're game pieces, and they represent resources. So there are 10 dark red, they're actually kidney beans, organic, and each person should have 10 red, organic, dark beans in front of them, and those represent resources that a city has to invest in the future. Oh, there are some white ones also. Those are the beans that represent the resources of the region. So if I counted correctly, there should be 40 red beans in each bag and 10 white beans in each bag. So each bag is enough beans for 1 group of 4. If you have only 4 people at your table and you've opened up both bags of beans, you're going to have twice as many game pieces as you need. But I'll leave you guys to sort that out. So the way we make decisions with these beans is we look at our board, and we're going to put our beans on different spots of the board to represent how we're making decisions. So let's take the case of the city. You'll take your blue city board. Take your 10 red beans. First of all, does everybody have 10 red beans? If anyone's missing a bean, it's possible. Raise your hand and we'll get you another one. Or grab it from the bag next to you. Okay, so you'll see that there are 3 sort of areas in the upper left. There's an area for flood protection, an area for investment and development, and an area for drought. And what we're going to do is we're going to allocate our 10 beans across these 3 categories. If you're not particularly interested in investing to, prepare for droughts or floods, you would leave all your beans in the middle row. This would represent you're going to spend it on something else: education, healthcare, roads. Or you may choose to consult your scientific information and say, yeah, actually this region does experience droughts and floods from time to time, so I'm going to allocate some resources to protect against those. So here's an example of that. This is 10 beans beginning, not allocated to flood protection or drought protection. Now, this particular city is saying, well, I'm concerned about drought, and I'm going to allocate some of my resources to drought protection. And you'd indicate that by placing 1 bean in the yellow area instead of the green area. And once we've allocated our beans, then we can record what we've done on the paper so that there's no cheating, and so that we have recorded for prosperity what we've done. So this is an example of recording the decision that was made in decade 1. And this decision says 0 flood protection, right? There are no beans up there by the umbrella. 9 investment and development. There are 9 remaining on the green area. And 1 in the yellow area, which is the drought. So that's how you make a decision. So you're going to do this as an individual or city, and then also as a region. And we'll walk through that when we do it. We record our observations. So now we're going to take our 6-sided die, and we're going to roll it to simulate what the conditions are like in the future. And we're going to start off interpreting, using that die, which is, that this is a representation of what we think the climate's going to be like. Maybe this is our best model that we've got, or some really smart scientist's interpretation of what they think how the climate could be. And if you roll a 6, you get a flood, and if you roll a 1, you get a drought. So we're going to simulate the climate and then see what actually happens. All right, then we're going to record those observations on our worksheet. So in this case, we rolled the die 10 times. We got a 2, 4, 3, 3, 1, 5, 2, 3, 5, 4. If you'll notice, we got a 1, which is a drought. So in this simulation, or in this decade, we experienced 1 drought. I should actually not be talking about simulations, because we're simulating the future, but act as if you're experiencing these 10 years. So we experienced 1 drought. And now we can tally the result. So for this particular city, they invested in against drought, 1 drought in fact, and so that bean protects them from the drought, or that investment, and they are left with 9 prosperity points and no crises, right? They invested in drought, they had a drought, their investment paid off, they're happy considering that they had a drought. And that can be recorded. Now, but what if we had a second drought? So we rolled the die, we only rolled 1 1. If we had rolled more than 1, we wouldn't have enough protection. And this would lead to a social and environmental crisis. And you lose your prosperity for that decade. And you get a crisis point. And that's what these red, red glass beads are in the center. I think they're aquarium rocks, actually. Those are crisis points. When you get a crisis, you should really take the time to pick one up, hold it in your hand, feel the weight, think about, could I have done something better and avoided this feeling? So that's really why they're there, to give you that tactile sense of not so great planning, perhaps. Okay. So each shortage of protection leads to an additional crisis. So that weight in your hand will accumulate as you experience conditions that you are not prepared for. All right, so here's an example of one city with 1 drought. They're doing fine. They get 9 prosperity points, 0 crises. Here's another city that oh, okay, I'm sorry. So here's another city that invested 2 beans in flood protection and none in droughts, so it had a crisis and 0 prosperity points. All right. So then we repeat the steps of the game. So that is how we play the game. Let me just tell you how to win, and then I'm going to take questions. So to win in this game, and I should point out, and I think I mentioned later, there are prizes. So there's a lot at stake, more than just the happiness and welfare of your constituents. The cities that have the fewest crises within your group of 4 is a winner. Okay, so each group of 4 will have 1 city winner, and that's the city that had the fewest crises across the 4 decades. And if there's a tiebreaker, so let's suppose 2 cities had the same number of crises, let's say they both had 2, then you look to prosperity. So even though you're trying to minimize crises, prosperity is important, because when you're competing against your neighbors, you want to have prosperity matters. All right, now for the region, there's 1 winning region amongst the whole entire room here. And the winning region is the one that's the most prosperous. So you're going to look at your region, the region card, and again, the one with the most prosperity is the one that wins. And if there's a tie, we look at the crisis points. And as I mentioned, there are prizes, and they're pretty good. All right, so I think we're at the stage where all right, so before we play, let me just ask, first of all, is anybody super confused? All right, great question. How do we play the regional board? And that is with the white beans. So what we're going to do is when we go through each decade, you're going to first make decisions as a city individually and as a region collectively, and then we're going to roll the die to see what happens, and individually you'll see how you did, and as a region you'll see how you did. And then we'll talk about the results. Yeah, in the back. Okay, the question was, as a table, how do you, essentially, how do you make your regional decisions? At each decade, you're going to need to, as a table, make your regional decisions. And so that's a collaboration. And if you can't agree, what happens when you can't agree in this country? Gridlock, everything stops. You know the story. In that case, all your investment is simply in prosperity. You don't get to invest in drought or in flood unless you can agree to do so with your other members of the table. Okay, let's move into the first round. All right. So, scientific information. We're maybe stepping back in time a little bit to when we, our best source of information was historical information. And we are going to be, again, looking at using our six-sided die, which represents the historical precipitation, and the statistics of that historical precipitation were such that a 6 is a flood and a 1 is a drought. Sorry, I went over that too quickly. So with that in mind, take a few moments to, as an individual and as a region, allocate your beans to indicate how much you want to invest to protect against flood, which occurs if you roll a 6, or drought, which occurs if you roll a 1. And remember, you're playing for 10 years. And everything else that's left over is for development. So take a few minutes and do it individually, and then see if you can make some decisions as a region. So you got about 2 minutes. And so you allocate your beans, and then record your investments on the piece of paper. All right, you got your beans allocated? Don't roll your die yet. Don't roll your die yet. Just record your decisions. Yeah, we'll get there, but yeah, you're going to roll once for each group of 4 people. But don't roll yet. Just make sure you allocated your beans and write down your allocations on your paper. You rolled already. Okay, we'll you'll be all right. And did you make regional decisions? No. All right, be sure to record them. After you've made your individual city decisions, be sure to make regional decisions. Yep. Decisions made? Okay. Yep. All right, water planners are faster than other planners. Time to move on. All right, raise your hand if you still need more time. Okay, take another minute or two. Don't roll your die yet. You're just making your decisions. We'll get to the dice rolling in a moment. And we're almost going to get there. Yeah. Are we rolling the dice 10 times? Not yet. You will. You will roll. It'll all be clear in a moment. Okay. All right. By a show of hands, how many people invested not at all for flood protection? So everybody allocated at least 1 bean to flood protection. Same for drought? Everybody must be from Colorado in this room. Did anybody invest a different amount for flood than for drought? Do you mind sharing your thinking there? Just.
Wait. Okay, now say.
Yeah.
All the talk this morning talked about the regional that we're in faces drought a lot more than flooding. So I know that the dice are the same, but that was my thinking.
Yeah, okay. All right, so you're bringing in some additional information about changes that might be afoot. Okay. Did anybody not leave any beans left for development? Just put them all in flood protection or drought protection? Okay, no one forgot about education. Good, phew. Healthcare, roads. Okay, excellent. All right, let's move on. Okay, now you get to roll the dice. So for this stage, we've got 10 years. We're going to experience 10 years very quickly by rolling our dice 10 times. You're going to roll it once per group of 4. I guess every table is just one group. So I'll have someone roll the dice and record the observations under the annual precipitation column. And once you are done, you can probably begin to identify how many floods and droughts you had, but we'll get to that in a second. Roll 10 times and record it. And given that climate is sort of regional, that's why we're rolling for once per table. Amazon standard issue dice.
You can't play the role we're on.
All right, hopefully we're on our last couple years. Decade's almost done. All right, so record your results and count up your droughts and floods by circling the 1s and the 6s. Remember, 1 is a drought, 6 is a flood. And compare it to your investments. If you did not make enough investments to cover your droughts or floods, then you get a crisis. And write the number of crises down. And if you were lucky enough not to have crises, or you planned well enough not to have crises, then you can record how many prosperity points you have, which are the beans in the green part of your board. And remember to do the scoring for both the cities and the regions.
We had flood. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just moved them. I already moved them. Actually have 2 crises. Oh, sorry. That's my fault. Because you had invested enough. Got it. Yeah.
Be sure to feel the weight of the crisis bead.
Yes. Oh, we did. You're right. Yeah, thank you.
How you guys doing?
Hose, man. Yeah, tell me about this.
What? Well, yeah, if you have a crisis, you automatically get 0 prosperity.
You guys get it?
All right. How many people need more time to record their results? Okay, okay. Take a few more minutes to finish recording your results. Do you have a question?
How do we record the prosperity?
Right on the right-hand column.
How do you compute it?
Oh, you have.
Sorry.
You have 2 prosperity points. The prosperity points equals the number of development beans that are left. So if you invested, 8 beans in flood protection and drought protection, and you don't experience any crises, then that would leave you with 2 prosperity points.
How many floods did you have? 3. Okay, so you already had a crisis. So you had 1 crisis there. And
Expect confusion.
State that what you just said.
So you had 1 crisis.
I had 3, 4, 3.
Immediately means
Okay.
just 1 crisis.
6 and 1.
Okay, so you're
which means
well protected,
you
so your
will
prosperity
not
is 4.
get
You had it right.
prosperity points.
That's what's left. So you're good. Okay, great. So you had 6 prosperity points as long as you didn't, you did not exceed the number of droughts and floods. Yes, correct. Yep. So if you had invested 0 in drought protection, you would have had a drought crisis and you would have gotten 0 prosperity points.
If you have a crisis.
Yep.
If you have
It's
a
all or
crisis
nothing.
And you don't have enough.
That's good.
You have drought or floods.
Yeah.
You don't have any.
You lose your development. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. By a show of hands, or you can stand up if you're feeling particularly proud of yourself. How many cities had 0 crises? All right, 0 crises. Raise your hand. Okay, so a little bit more than half. Okay, so we've got some prudent investors. Or how many people that had 0 crises had more than 3 prosperity points? 4 prosperity points? 5 prosperity points? 6 prosperity points? 7 prosperity points? Did anyone have 7? Did anyone have 7? Okay, 6. Okay, who had 6? All right. Who wants to talk a little bit about their, how they felt that decade went and what they attribute their success to? Does this table want to say a few remarks? Tell us about it. How'd you do it? What was your secret?
There was a lot of thought put into.
Oh, you must take a mic.
I put a lot of thought into my bean allocation and protecting our constituents from flood and drought, but didn't over appropriate.
And were you lucky?
Yes,
Because you didn't experience very many droughts or floods?
that's right.
How many droughts and floods did you experience?
3.
Excellent. What table experienced more than 3 droughts or floods? Did you experience more than 4? We had 4 floods. 4 floods? And so you guys probably didn't do so well in the prosperity? Yeah.
3 beans on drought, but no droughts.
Okay, all right. Does anybody want to share anything else at this stage? It could be directed towards me and the game, or just... Okay, well, why don't we move on? Oh, okay, loaded die. So you're questioning your information, huh? All right, so let's move on. So we have a few more decades, so don't despair if you ended up with lots of crises. Okay, so let's see, there's this thing. Okay, round 2, years 11 to 20. Okay, so we're gonna just as a reminder, we have our 6-sided dice with 6 as a flood, 1 as a drought. However, we have some new strategies available to us to help us better prepare ourselves for drought and flood. We're calling this a robust option. So what is a robust option? A robust option is something that's going to perform well regardless of how the uncertainty or how the future plays out. Okay, so in this case, if you go with the robust option, you're guaranteed not to have crises, or you're guaranteed to maintain some prosperity. So such an option sounds pretty great, right? The question is, how much is this cost? What is it going to take to be guaranteed that you're not going to experience crises and not that you're going to experience prosperity? So if I were to offer you a robust option, and I was to say it would cost you 3 beans, meaning if you take the robust option, that will leave 7 beans for prosperity, guaranteed. How many people would take it? Okay, anyone that isn't really interested in a robust option at a sale price of 3 kidney or cannoli beans? No? Okay, what about 4? The cost of 4. 5? Ken, why are you so bullish on the robust option?
We had a very volatile first decade, and so I'm overcorrecting.
You're overcorrecting. Not at the price of 3, but maybe at the price of 5. Yeah, okay. Anyone else have some thoughts on this robust option? Would anybody take it for 7? Guaranteed 3 prosperity points. Look at your sheet. How many do you have now? Some of you have 0. I might remind you. Okay. All right. Well, at this, stage in development in the water resources community, robust options are quite difficult to develop. They're very costly. They take a lot of energy. And actually, before we get into it, does anyone have any thoughts on what a robust option might look like in Colorado, or it maybe isn't completely robust, but types of options that maybe have a bit more of that robustness characteristic as opposed to something that is maybe designed for a particular type of future or particular conditions. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Increase storage, take advantage of floods and mitigate drought.
All right, so like a multi-purpose reservoir to manage for floods and droughts. Any other ideas? I'm sorry? Okay, so you certainly are on an aquifer. So taking advantage of an aquifer and groundwater resources is okay. Oh, I see. You're questioning the premise of the game. Well, you're in a region like this one, which happens to be flat in many areas. Okay. Any other thoughts on robust options? Yes.
Reuse facility.
And in what way is that robust? So reuse facility is a suggestion.
Use and reuse your effluent extinction. So even if there's no runoff yet, at least the base was.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's, it turns out that at this point in time, a robust option does cost 7 beans. 7 beans. So if you're making your decisions and you would like to take the robust option, you can remove 7 beans and leave 3 in the development category, and you can rest assured, you can rest easy as the dice are rolled. So let's move into the decision making. So allocate your beans or choose the robust option and record your investments. I'll give you a little less time this time around because you kind of understand how the game works. Don't roll your dice though. We got to get to that stage next. Yes. Yes. Yeah. That was the question was, what about the region? And on the last round, you should have also evaluated the region. I'm sorry I didn't point that out. So if you need to look at your region from the previous decade, be sure to do that because remember, you're competing against the other regions.
We get to invest 10 beans?
Yep, you're investing 10 beans and you can invest them as you did last decade. Yep, this is a brand new decade, brand new investments, brand new climate you'll face. The only difference is that you have an option of a robust option at a cost of 7 beans. You guys all done? Yep. The region can also invest in a robust option at the cost of 7. Yes.
My question is, if all these other beans are going to the bank, what is the bank? Who is the bank, and what's done with that money?
Those are investments. So when you're investing in drought planning, you are paying people to could go into the community and the people that are going to perform the work to provide drought protection or flood protection. And the robust option is a little bit vague and ambiguous at this point, but think of it in a similar way. Don't roll yet. Okay, who needs more time to allocate their investments for decade 2? Raise your hand. Okay, just a few more seconds, then we're going to start rolling dice. Okay, let's move into the observations. However, this time, roll your dice twice and record your observations. Just twice. We're just going to take a pause and look at things 2 years into this next decade. Roll the dice twice. Remember, you're rolling for your cities and for the region. Be sure to record. Hey, Lorna. Lorna. Oh, okay, good. Okay, has everybody rolled their dice twice? Okay, let me just take a quick poll. Is anybody already like blown out of the water this decade? Or are people still alive and hanging tight? Okay, everyone looks good. Okay, well, we have all attended this wonderful conference and learned this morning about climate change. And so as planners, we're beginning to rethink our reliance on the trusty Amazon issue six-sided die. And Jeff Lucas, in fact, has provided us with some information that suggests that there's a better model out there to use to think about climate conditions in the future. And we actually have some. They're also from Amazon, and there's an 8-sided die. And so I want every table to hand over your outdated, antiquated 6-sided die and grab an 8-sided die. And this is the 8-sided die is where it's at. It's the shape of the future. Okay, once you have your 8-sided die, the way you interpret this 8-sided die, according to Jeff Lucas, is?
Yes, 8 is a flood and 1, 2, 3 is a drought, and I'd never endorse this because it implies that the flood risk is decreasing in the future. But
This was the beta version, sorry. Okay, all right, so I put Jeff on the spot, sorry. Okay, so let's roll the rest of the 8 years. Roll 8 more times with your 8-sided die. Okay. Once you're done rolling for the next 8 years, be sure to record your results and figure out how many droughts and floods you experienced in your region and whether or not you were protected against those, and if not, how many crises you have. Remember, for the first 2 years, we were operating under the historical climate, and it wasn't until the years 3 through 10 that we change our model. And so 1, 2, and 3 is a drought, and 8 is a flood for years 3 through 10. All right, add up your crises and your prosperity points. And maybe raise your hand when you're done. Okay, anyone need more time to record their crises and prosperity? All right, first question, how many people took that robust option that I described earlier? Raise your hand. Either one, yeah, just where, okay. So I see a few more hands than there were raised when I asked if people would take it for seven beans. So did anybody change their mind between when I asked if you would take the robust option and then whether you actually took the robust option? Did anyone change their mind, or pretty as soon as you heard it, you wanted it? Okay. All right. Okay, so obviously the people with the robust option, who chose the robust option, how many of you are really glad you did based on your roles? Or do you feel like you may have overspent and could have? Yeah, okay. All right, let's, how many tables have zero crises but did not invest in the robust option? How many people? All right, and how many prosperity points did you guys get? Did you have at least 3? 4? All right, so you guys all beat the robust option. All right, how about 5? 6? Okay. So in this table, did you guys, what do you attribute your success to? Was it savvy allocation, or did you have a real lucky die, or what?
Rolling. Dumb luck.
Dumb luck, okay. All right, sometimes it comes down to that. Okay, all right, let's move on to round 3. All right, so we have our new model. This is Jeff's old model. It's definitely outdated. And we have the robust option again. So now, based on the last decade, how many people would take the robust option now, when they wouldn't have had, oh, sorry, got tongue-tied there. How many of you would take the robust option even if you didn't want it last time? Few more? Depends on what? Okay, good. Okay, good point. How many of you would take it at the current cost of 7? Would anybody take it at 8 now, having this better model of climate, even though it may not be perfect? You take it for 5 only? Okay. All right. Well, the robust option is costs 8 now. It's pretty spendy, but it works. So that is an option for you. So now, why don't we take not too much time allocating our beans. Recognize that we have the robust option available to us for 8 beans. We are not done with climate change, sadly. Unfortunately, I think it's a long-term problem. And we're still operating under our climate understanding of the 8-sided die. Okay, everybody recorded your observations, or recorded your investments? How many people are taking the robust option at a cost of 8 this decade? 1, 2. I'd like to hear from someone who didn't take it last time and who is taking it this time. Is anyone here? All right. Can you just share your thinking with the group, please?
At the current climate change trend, I expect this decade to be worse than the previous decade.
All right. All right. Any other logic for taking the robust option that you guys want to share? All right. All right, let's get into the climate. So we're going to do 10 years of observations. So start rolling your die. 10 years and record your investments. All right, is everyone done rolling and recording? Okay, by a show of hands, how many people actually prospered this decade? All right, did anybody prosper without the robust option? Do you want to tell us about it? What happened?
Statistics?
Yeah, tell us.
So I put more in drought, and it just happened to be the number of droughts we had, and just happened to be the number of floods. So
How much prosperity did you get?
4.
So I've got a more meta question. How many people feel like they're kind of improving in their performance in this game? Is anybody feeling like decade 3, I rocked it, decade 2, not so much, but I'm learning. I'm feeling good about decade 4. Anyone? One person? All right, we got some confidence. Can you, oh, you need a mic. Can you share with the group, like, what are you learning? What kinds of things are working out for you? Why are you confident?
I believe I'm confident because the better I gamble, or the more I gamble, the better I get at the game, it seems like. And my guesses have been getting better and better depending on the rolls.
Wow, you should go to Vegas.
Do you go to Vegas? All right, you're on that bus to BlackRock every weekend. Okay, all right.
We've got some folks coming in from some of the other sessions, so I think feel free to just join in with one of the existing groups to kind of see what's going on if you want to. The game is like 3/4 over now,
Three-quarters
so
of
you
the
probably
way.
can't jump in the middle, but you can see what.
But don't anyone else go anywhere. Okay, let's move on to round 4. So 3 decades in, we're continuing to learn, and we have a new model for climate change. Jeff just gave this to me the other day. No, this has nothing to do with Jeff. So we do have a new model for climate change. It's coming from, well, I think it would come from Jeff, because it's coming from the top scientists from NASA, perhaps, now that they're back in the job. And this is our model of the climate. Can everybody see this? This is a cone. You might put something like this on your dog if you don't want that dog to scratch itself or chew itself. Let's see, this cone is a little bit wider on one side and narrow on the other side. And the way this model works, remarkably, I mean, it's the physics behind this and the simulations underlying this, the development of this model were really amazing and intense. If it lands like a hat, it indicates flood conditions, right? It's like an umbrella. If it lands like, I should have mentioned, the way you run this model, it's a little old school, but you actually toss it in the air. And we can get into that a little bit. But, it's essentially like a flick of the wrist with a little knee bend and a little bump. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, and if it lands like this, it's a flood. If it lands like this, this is a flood, drought. And if it lands on its side, then it's sort of normal, average conditions. Okay, all right, so this is our new model. So, before you, really have a chance to experiment and really get to know this model, by a show of hands, how many people think this is more likely to indicate a flood by landing in this orientation? How many people? Raise your hand if you think this is sort of biased towards flood. Well, not biased, but kind of heading towards flood more often than the other conditions. All right. What? Mind if I ask you, why do you think so?
Aerodynamics. Well,
explain to the layperson.
Yeah. So I think it's going to land down just because the way the air affects it as it goes down.
All right. So, sorry. John says aerodynamics obviously suggests that it's going to wiggle its way this way, and that the air is going to go through and hold it steady, and it's going to land like that. All right, who thinks it might land like this more often than the other states? All right, you're closest, Adam.
Even if it lands normal, it'll probably tip into drought. And as it's falling, it'll probably catch the air on the conical area. Aerodynamics.
He invoked aerodynamics also. Imagine that. All right, so his theory is, I guess, once it gets a little bit like this, then you're going to flip this way, and it's just going to gently land like, like a leaf falling from a tree on there. And if it lands like this, clearly the weight, pop it over. Anyone think that's ridiculous? It really ought to land, it's going to land on its side more often? Whose side? That was huge. No? Yeah? All right. Lorna's going to hand you a mic. Tell us what your thinking is.
I think it's going to be hard for it to land either on the top or bottom and stay there. They're just going to roll over to its side.
All right. Okay, excellent. Now, with this, additional insight from the pundits or from Twitter, I don't know what your medium of communication is these days. Who thinks that it's, by a show of hands, who thinks it's more likely to end in the flood state? Raise your hands. Drought state? Normal state? All right. Well, okay, that's great. Well, let's before we see how it plays out, let's make some investment decisions. We have the robust option available again. I'm going to save the drama. It costs 8, okay? So for 8 points, or 8 beans, you can purchase the robust option. Works even in this world of cone-style climate. So for our last decade, now think about the prizes for a minute, and think about the weight of those red beans or beads. So really think carefully about your investments for this last round. This is your last chance to really, save face, continue your winning streak, whatever it may be. Okay? Our scientific information suggests that those dice are just obsolete, not particularly relevant to the climate of the next decade. Yeah, it's an annual model. Yes, we will. It will give us answers each year as the dice did. So, please spend a little bit of time and allocate your decisions, or make your decisions. Allocate your beans.
So Dave, there's a question in the back about how the model is tossed into the air. Are there guidelines for that?
The guidelines, yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, there's a flick of the wrist. Slight knee bend, a little bit of a bump to give it a little bit of upward momentum, and then you don't flip it forward. You kind of flip it back on itself. These are all in the guidelines. I mean, you just read the manual, and you try to get maybe 1 to 2 feet of height before you let gravity and aerodynamics take over, and then the statistics all work out perfectly.
Oh, you guys are what?
Yeah, you can look at it.
You can look at it. Look at it from over here.
We don't have enough to hand out to everybody, so yeah, I'm the operator. It's based on my technique. All right, who needs more time? Okay, well, as we discussed, this, clearly has the potential for being asymmetrical, meaning we may have more droughts than floods, statistically speaking, over the long time horizon with this model. Let's just, with a show of hands, who invested 5 or more beans in flood protection? Raise your hands. 5 or more beans in drought protection? Oh wait, I should have asked. Who's taking the? I'm sorry. How did you invest? 5 drought. Okay. And how many people took the robust option this time? 2 prosperity points is better than no prosperity points in the weight of many, many glass aquarium beads. I get it. Okay. So, how many people invested more than 5 in prosperity? So think a little bit about your decision making this decade. How did you approach it, or did you approach it differently than, say, the last time when it was based on the 8-sided die, or the previous decades when it was based on the 6-sided die? Did anybody have can anyone describe how they thought perhaps about this choice a little bit differently in this context? Would you like to share?
It seemed like there was more uncertainty, so I was more willing to go with the robust option.
Okay, great. Any other complimentary thoughts to
Yeah,
that?
I'll give you a thought. So
Please
I
do.
want to win. So because of the position I'm in now,
Yeah.
I can't take the robust option. Otherwise, in real life, I would take the robust
see.
option because it's better to be prosperous than not prosperous.
But you're
I'm
really
trying to
looking
win.
for the prize. You you want to be the winningest mayor or planner. Okay, great. Yeah, Lorna.
I feel that the value of the robust option has gone up now because there's only 3 possible outcomes with the new flipping device. So it's a better value than it was in the prior round. That's why I switched.
Okay. All right. Are you guys ready to wrap this up and see who's the winner? See if I have a... All right, let's... All right, so 10 years of observations. So I actually can't flip this for you because this is representing the climate, and our understanding of the climate is probably not sufficiently represented by this or those die. And so the way this game ends is thinking about, just thinking about this. We're not able to resolve climate right now, so we're not gonna resolve this round. And you can just think a little bit, let it linger in your minds about what would have happened and how might this decade have played out. So with that in your mind, oh. So you see, I always get this request. You really want to see, and we really want to understand the climate, but it's kind of the same thing. We can't just know now. We have to plan, really not understanding completely what this is going to do. We can have our theories that it might land this way from thermodynamic or aerodynamics, or this way, or it's going to fall over. But we really need to think about planning for climate change with acknowledgement that, with the humbleness of our ability to predict the future. So I have to leave you with that feeling. But I will not leave you with the feeling that you got gypped and you did not get a chance to win your prizes. So with that in mind, let's move on to the last stage of tallying up your final results, decade 1 through 3 only. So what that means is sum up your crises and sum up your prosperity points for the first 3 decades. Okay, now here's the way, just a reminder. So each table, there may be one person with the fewest crises. If there's not someone with the fewest crises, do a tiebreaker by prosperity. And each table, please identify your winner.
Who was the city winner? who won in the city? Oh, so you had 2 crises?
Okay, has everybody figured out which city is the winner at each table? Please stand up if you are the winner of your table. All right, everybody give these folks a round of applause. Does anybody who's standing want to share thoughts on their victory? Strategies?
Well, it's a shallow victory because I had to share it with 2 other cities. Oh, wait, no, that's wrong, right?
No,
it's a great victory because 2 other cities got to share in it.
This was your objective. Okay, any other thoughts?
I just went robust all the way.
So you went robust all the way and you won?
Yep.
Okay, because no one else went robust all the way, so you didn't have to worry about your prosperity, right? All right, now let's figure out the regional winners, and then I want to talk a little bit about just a few things, and then we can go. Okay, so let's see, how are we going to do the regional winner? Okay, most prosperity points. So by a show of hands, if your region had at least 5 prosperity points? Raise your hands. 6 prosperity points by the region. 7. Uh-oh. Okay, 8. This is the region. So this is the, what is that? The red card. What am I on? 7, 8, 9. 10 prosperity points. We've still got 5 tables. 10, 11, 12, 13. This is incredible. All right, it's just down to you two. 14, 15. How many did you have? Did you cheat? No. All right, well, please share some share some wisdom with the crowd, please.
Well, we just covered the risk based on rolling the dice, and you know the numbers are only going to come up a certain number of times, so that's why we played it.
Great. Do you think that this last round, if we started flipping the cone, that might have changed your luck and changed your outcome, or did you have that nailed too? You nailed it. Okay. All right. Great. So, first of all, I want to thank you guys a ton for playing this game. One last question, or one last thing. I just want to see. Does anybody have any thoughts about how it felt to be planning? First, with one expectation of the future, and then have it be changed on you mid-decade, and then be presented with something that's like super confusing and not very clear. Are there any thoughts anybody want to share or reflect? Yes. Let me give you the mic. I definitely want everyone to hear. Excellent. Let's elaborate on that in a sec. Hold on.
Actually, I felt relieved when you did that, because I think one of the outcomes could be we have plenty of money in the bank, but everything else is gone and shut the hell. And, that's not what it's about. So I was relieved when you did that, because it's made the game make more sense to me. Yeah, I thought that was okay.
Thank you very much. I think those are great. That's a great, makes a lot of sense to have that feeling with this experience. Someone said frustration. Who was that? He left. But you guys weren't frustrated at all? Who really wanted me to toss the cone? That was you did. Are you okay with not having the cone tossed? Okay, there have been times when people have left fairly disappointed. Okay, any last thoughts on this before we wrap up and let you guys take a break? Again, thank you so much for playing this game. This game is, I should mention, we've played this game, not just me, but there are a number of people that are part of the Decision Making Under Uncertainty Society. It's a academic group that thinks about methods and approaches for thinking about deep uncertainty. This society plays this game in lots of different venues. Folks from the IPCC have played it. Lots of leaders internationally have played this game, and it's always a little bit different. But you guys were great. So, any last comments or thoughts for the group about planning for uncertainty? If not, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break. But then the rest of the afternoon, we're going to hear from people who know a lot about planning for under uncertainty and hear about how they're doing it. Anyone? All right. Thank you very much. You can leave the game materials on the table. You can take the game boards with you if you want, but thanks so much. And don't tell anybody about the game so they can experience it for themselves.
Let's thank Dave for organizing the game here.